and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben, as always I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week we're discussing the epilogue of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and we're also giving our views on Pokemon Concierge. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, how are you feeling this week? You feeling better?
Better than I was. Almost ironically. Immediately start coughing up. Yeah, I'm still suffering, but I'm out and about again. I can move again. I did get checked. It wasn't COVID, which we were very happy to see. It's just going around at the moment. All of my mates kind of have it. My family had it. It's just what it is.
Okay. You better be better when you come up and visit, by the way. I don't want to get ill. I can't get ill. I might have to wear a mask.
I hope it should be fine.
He is hoping. That's what. So Conor's coming up north to see some friends, and he's coming along to see me as well. So I'm guessing that means I'm one of your friends now.
Oh, you should hope so after this long of working together.
I know, Pokemon friend. Well, yeah, but it's like when you work with somebody. At what point do they move from colleague to friend?
The thing is, I don't think you can do this kind of work and just be colleagues. I don't think it works like that.
No, I agree. You need to have at least a foundation of friendship, don't you?
Mm.
And we'd work together,
especially.
Yes, definitely. We'd work together anyway on a series, and we kind of knew one another anyway. We've discussed this before on the podcast, So yeah, we're officially friends. So you're gonna come up, we're gonna spend some time together, gonna have a laugh, gonna have some food. I want to go to the same place we went last time. I just want that cheesecake again because it was like, it was
gorgeous.
It
we
was
spent
amazing.
4 hours until they kick us out just talking about Pokemon.
Just talking, I know, right?
You think we go on for a long time here? We do not shut up when we're actually in the same room together.
No, we didn't. I love how as well we tried to avoid the topic of work, quote unquote, and talk about a variety of other things, and they just it's just
what we have in common.
Yes, it's what brings. But it's one of the things that I think we both love about Pokemon is the fact it brings people together, no matter your background, your age, your gaming history. It just brings you together. It's absolutely just fantastic. Should we jump into the first question that we've had this week?
Oh, yes. Questions. Let's go.
Thrive, who was asked, do you think Switch 2 will be called the Nintendo Switch 2? And do you think it will be available this September? This question comes on the back of some leaks that I've seen a tiny bit of end of last week, I think, off the top of my head. That's about all I know. So I don't know what so I'm guessing the leak suggested around September. One of the things I did see about the leak is apparently, I kind of hope this is the case because this is something I predicted a long time ago, that it is potentially dual screen. Now,
how does that work as a Switch?
Wow, the way I think. What do you mean how it works as a Switch, like docking and undocking?
Yeah, how do you take 2 screens and put it up on my TV?
It might be, and the only way I could see this working is it's not so much a dual screen as it is modern phones now are like flip phones where there's a seamless curve. That's the only thing I can think is where they're trying to maybe minimize the size so it becomes more of a pocket edition. So it's kind of like, here's the Switch, but it's smaller, better with battery life, better processors and technology, but it can now fit in your pocket. So instead of it just being around the house, and maybe if you want to take it out, you have to package it up, it is literally just foldable. You put it in your thing and you're out and about.
So I don't think that will be the case simply because of the cost.
Oh,
you think how much those foldable phones cost? You're talking about £1,000 for a Switch, which is, people are saying it's on par with the PS3, PS4.
When that came out, it was ridiculous.
Which again, if it's going to be the same kind of size as the Switch, great, fantastic. I don't expect this. So another Switch coming out, people are going to expect it to compete with A, the Steam Deck, B, the Asus ROG portable, whatever it's called.
And and as well, sorry, just it still has to compete with the original Switch as well. And I know they're by the same company, but we've seen multiple times that when a new console comes out, it takes a while for the momentum to build because a new console comes out, there aren't many games that come out. The games don't take full advantage of the, what the console can do because the developers are still getting used to it. People maybe don't want to jump on board from a social element of, well, all my friends are still playing the games on the current console, so why do I want to jump to the next generation? So yeah, there's multiple competitors.
So there are, but I mean, the difference is that, you've got the ROG Ally, which is probably the most powerful portable handheld gaming computer at the moment, but it doesn't have the Nintendo library. Unless you're emulating, which you do you, but it doesn't officially have the Nintendo library. So on that note, the Switch is always going to be more desirable to some people. I think really they need to hit a 300, 400 pound, 450 absolute maximum price. 450. And I don't think you'll get a folding screen for 450. It's not happening. No. I don't think I don't think you're going to have super crazy specs for 450. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be better than Switch, but the Switch is nothing, really.
Well, the Switch is so
Switch
old,
isn't as powerful as my phone.
No, it's running, people don't realize, how, when the Switch came out, the technology it was built on was old at that point.
Yeah.
It's been due an upgrade for a long time, and the fact that some developers can get the quality out of the Switch that we get is astounding. And yet Game Freak, Game Freak does Game Freak.
Game Freak does Game Freak. But do I think it'll be called the Switch 2? They've never really done a 2 title before. It's just not the sort of thing Nintendo does.
They never have. The Super Nintendo Switch.
The closest we got was the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. So I could... I don't think they'll call it Switch 2. I think you're absolutely right. So they've never done that. Like you say, the other one that we had that came closest to that was the Wii U, and we saw how that went. Yeah, it went terribly because people were confused and just thought it was just like an upgrade or an adapter for it. So people didn't go. Yeah, people didn't go out and buy it,
which is a shame because the Wii U was actually a fantastic console.
Yeah, I remember
some of the best games that Nintendo has ever had.
Yeah, there's a reason why, when the Switch came out, they ported a load of those games because it was like, well, it's cheap and easy to pump out to re-release games on the console, but also it was the fact that, well, not many people bought them on the Wii U, and therefore we can sell them and make even more money on the Switch. Anyway, with the Switch 2, I could see Switch 2 as a name simply because it emphasizes, no, this is an upgrade. It cements them as, no, we are a serious gaming competitor, which I don't think the Switch has kind of moved away from that generational cycle of, within a year's time span, you got GameCube, you got PS3, and you got Xbox 360, and then no, PS2, GameCube. No? Yeah, PS2, GameCube, Xbox, then Xbox 360, PS3,
Wii.
The Wii, and then after that, the generational cycle kind of broke. Nintendo just kind of broke away from that and did their own thing. Switch 2 could also be used for marketing purposes, like Switch to us, Switch to the latest console, but all that being said, I just don't see them. They'll come up with something else, I think. But saying that, the Switch is the console I play the most of, mainly because of its functionality of, dock, undock, being able to take it away. The fact that, a lot of the games can be played with a sideways controller, which means it's really easy for children, for example, and people that don't typically play games, and you just go, here it is. All you need to worry about is left and right, up and down, and a couple of buttons. Makes it a lot easier for people to play. I think that. Do I think it'll be available in September? I don't know enough about this to say that. I think that it wouldn't surprise me if we do get something this year, though, because the Switch has been out for quite some time, and I think it is due.
Flip the question around then.
Yeah.
If a Switch 2 gets announced for September release, do you think a Pokemon game coming out in November will be on the Switch 2?
No, and we kind of touched on this last week after. I think it was after we finished recording, that when Game Freak's history is that whenever a new console comes out, the next Pokemon game, mainline Pokemon game, typically releases on the last generation's hardware. The main reason with that, I think, is the developers are comfortable with that. So they go, okay, this is our last game. We know the insides and outs. Let's get this game out on something that we understand. But then also, you've also got, if Game Freak announce a game and it's a case of, okay, this is, it's either comes out on the Switch or it comes out on the Switch 2. The problem with the Switch 2, you haven't got much of a user base. You haven't got very many people. Don't get me wrong, that game will still sell well, and it will still sell well over time. But the problem you've got with that is if you bring out a Pokemon game every single year, people that then buy a Switch the following year or 2 years after or 3 years after that, the Switch 2, are they going to go back and buy the first Pokemon game that came out? Maybe not. If they only want one every now and again, they might just go, well, I'll just get the latest Pokemon game. I think that releasing the latest Pokemon game on a Switch console, a second Switch console, whatever it might be, I think it wouldn't. I think they would look at the sales and go, nah, we're not getting the sales from releasing on this console this early, and therefore let's release on the original Switch, with maybe the option to at some point bring it to the Switch 2 via a digital library.
So here's the other thought as well. So with a Switch 2, I think it really needs to be backwards compatible.
Oh, definitely.
The amount of people who have a Switch currently, it makes the Switch 2 that much more sellable if it's backwards compatible. It was something Nintendo were good at for a long while, and then it kind of just disappeared, which is a shame. But the Switch library is massive. It's one of the best-selling consoles ever. I think they do well to capitalize on it. And I think it'd be easier to adopt a new console if I could play all my own old games, but at better specs.
Agreed.
So I could play it at 1080p, 4K, undocked.
Yeah.
All the games you already own, you can now play in 4K undocked. Perfect. Oh, and they're all 60 FPS. Like locked. Perfect. I think that would be a good selling point. On a similar note, I don't think it'll happen. But could you sorry, I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Could you imagine a world where they released, we got a third version of Scarlet and Violet for the Switch 2? So we know that when Pokemon move on to new consoles, they don't like to use brand new games because they want something that's comfortable. They want a testing ground, effectively.
Yep.
So if they could release a third, oh my god, I'm dying so badly. If they could release a third version of Scarlet and Violet that worked perfectly, actually just worked because the hardware was better and could actually run it. The graphics were slightly upgraded, was still backwards compatible, so you could still get, home's going to be a whole issue, but you could even have people from Scarlet and Violet come into your world, and you could go into theirs. Maybe that could only work one way, people from Scarlet and Violet could play in your world, but you couldn't play in theirs, whatever the case may be. Could you see a world where that happened? Oh my god!
Oh god, I will talk for a little bit. Do I see a version of that happening? it's never been done in that way before. Obviously, we have had third versions of Pokemon games, but they're always on the same console as the base games. However, I could see Game Freak doing it from a monetary and ease of development perspective of, if we can carry over the base code to this new console and we can then tweak and adapt and, play around with it, it means that they get to maximize on development time because, we've not got to build a game from scratch. We've just got to basically upscale, up-res, improve functionality, improve the graphics, improve the frame drops, fix a load of the issues that should have been fixed in the base game on release. But then they get to package it at, £60, whatever it is in equivalent elsewhere, and include DLC as well. I think that might make a few people buy. Now, the question is then, do they just go, no, it's basically the same game, but everything's included, or do they do what they haven't done in quite a while of, this is a retelling. It allows us to fix some of the bugs. So like Emerald and Platinum, they changed things around and introduced new things. I think from a sales perspective, I think you've got two audiences there. And I think I think the majority of the people would want something different. I personally, if they went, okay, Switch 2's out, by the way, an improved version of Scarlet and Violet, I wouldn't be that fussed about buying it. I don't see the point in buying that. If they, however, they were like, no, this is a reimagining, a retelling, and we've fixed a load of things and also tweaked things, then suddenly, if that gives me the definitive version of Scarlet and Violet, I'm half tempted. I'd seriously be half tempted, but I think unlike Scarlet and Violet, I would wait to see what all the reviews said first.
Yeah. See, I think if they were going to do something like that, they would definitely have to do a Platinum, where it's a case of, we're going to change the story up a little bit, we're going to move, well, I'd say move the gyms around, but just give them scaling. Mm-hmm. Give them scaling and I'll buy the game again, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the ending of the game would have to change. But they've set their world up in such a way that that's really easy to do, where you play through the world where Sada Arturo gave their book away.
Yeah.
Because, spoilers for anyone who has not played the end of the Indigo Disc, but we're going to be talking about the epilogue later anyway, so obviously. You get Sada Arturo's copy of the book. They give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that doesn't exist in that world to shut down the time machine when that happens. So how does that play out then? Is there a different off switch effectively? Or can it just not be turned off? And in which case you've then got a world where, okay, the Paradise Protection Protocol kicks in, fully materializes, takes over the AI professor, he or she crystallizes fully, and now Paradox Pokemon are being pumped out, and they're going to start running amok across Paldea. So you've now got to go and get hold of Terrapagos before even going off to do the Blue Air Academy stuff. You've got to go get hold of Terrapagos to shut it down. So Terrapagos becomes your main legendary.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, you know what, actually, when you were saying all that, I was thinking about the naming convention of Scarlet and Violet, and I think you struggle to get one. Pokemon Stally?
Yeah.
Like the Stella type, that could work. But I was going to say, I'd go Pokemon Paradox personally, and it would be a case of, like you say, oh, this is Scarlet and Violet, but lean more into the Paradox side of things of, no, time's all skewy now because of the events that have happened, and it's not so much a loop, but it's like, okay, this is your timeline's a straight line, and now you're back at the start of that straight line, but that straight line isn't straight anymore because things have changed, causing paradoxes. Now that a bit so kind of like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, where they had the base game and then just went, okay, let's move things around and change the story slightly, and then add a few things. But I'd want to see them go. I'd want to see them delve even deeper into it. So honestly, like I could see it being a case of, oh, Area Zero. Well, you've been down here before, so you know what to expect. So we're actually going to put you down here at the start to kind of set up the story and what's actually happening, and realizing then, oh, there's some things that I need to do, and possibly tie more into Ogerpon's story and what's going on in Blueberry Academy. I'd like to see it tied in a little bit more. And I'd like to see the Paradox Pokemon tied in with the story a little bit more, rather than just, okay, you get down to the bottom, oh, there's a few Paradox Pokemon and the professor uses some. I'd like to see them take a greater role in the story. And honestly, one of the ways you do that is the Titan fights. Like, you go to your first Titan fight, oh, there's a Clough. Wait, why is it not very big? And then all of a sudden you turn around and there's like another Titan Pokemon that is huge. And you're like, oh, okay. Straight away you realize, oh, this is a reimagining of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's story and timeline. I can see that working quite well to get people enticed into it. Because
it's more likely that we'll get Let's Go Johto than this, but...
More than likely, yes. Agreed. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do for the first Pokemon game on a Switch successor. Are they going to play it safe and go, yeah, let's go with something like Let's Go Johto with that same kind of art style as Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, with no real new Pokemon outside of maybe, something similar to Maltan, and play it safe while they get used to the tools that they have available. It's going to be... I am really curious now as to what Game Freak does, because like we've said before, elements of the Switch era felt very much like they were just experimenting. And I don't want to see more experimentation in the Switch 2 era. What I want to see is honing what they've already got and going, okay, this is what did work, this is what didn't work, learn your lessons from it and apply that to the next few games that come out. I don't want a load of experimentation. I think between, Let's Go, Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, I think there are elements of all of them that if you pulled them together, you would create a really good Pokemon game. And I think that's what I want to see. I don't think that's what we'll get, but that's what I want to see.
Yeah, when you mention it like that, I guess Sword and Shield was the only real by-the-numbers Pokemon game we got on the Switch.
You know what? Actually, yeah, no, there is an element of Pokemon Sword and Shield that I do like, but the reason I didn't really bring that up is because we kind of got, again, with Scarlet and Violet in terms of the raids.
Sorry, what I meant was Scarlet and Violet had the... Scarlet and Violet introduced open world. Legends Arceus had the new catching mechanics. Let's Go had the new catching mechanics. Sword and Shield was the most vanilla out of the Switch games that we've had.
No, it really was, actually, because I think the only things that were slightly different are the open area that you get in the wild area. That is it. But that's just a tiny little aspect of that. And they developed on that. The DLC, which had never really been done before, but again, they did that with Scarlet and Violet. Raids, again, they did with Scarlet and Violet. Dynamaxing is just the gimmick of that generation. But I completely agree. Like, when you look at all the games that have been on the Switch generation, and I'm discounting BDSP because it wasn't made by Game Freak, but Sword and Shield is the most kind of, like you say, paint by numbers. We've done this dozens of times before. Let's do it again. Just, with more modern graphics and a few little, online functionality that we haven't had before.
Yeah, you make a good point with raids in the wild area. I had kind of forgotten about those, but
the reason I didn't really bring them up is because it was like they experimented on them and then did them again in Scarlet. But they obviously learned some things from them. Still think they learned the wrong things from the raids.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it.
Scarlet and Violet's raids are, and you know what? I was on Reddit the other day scrolling, and someone started talking about the raids, and there was a lot of upvotes on this raid post, and I was like, I'm glad it's not just me. And I know some people think that it's absolutely fine, whatever, I can play them, but those raids are almost unplayable at times. Anyway, if you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, or by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Connor, should we just jump straight into the epilogue?
Yes.
Okay. Did you find it obvious? Pardon?
It should have been a movie.
Should have been a movie. Okay. Go on then. Take it straight in. Let's jump into the deep end.
It's how much of that did you actually play?
Not a lot, actually. There was a handful of battles, a bit of running around.
You had a fight against the two random people. You had a fight against Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah.
You had a fight against Arvin and Penny, and you had a fight against Nimona. And
a bit of running around,
quote unquote, with Pecharunt.
Yeah.
So you had 5 battles. You didn't run around. You flew. You flew from place to place.
Yeah, no, you did. You did, yeah. Yep.
You had 5 battles. And it took me 2 hours to do 5 battles.
Took you that long? Why did it take you that long?
Because I'm a very slow reader.
Okay,
which,
fair enough.
Again, is why it should have been a movie.
Should have been a movie. Yeah. And you know
if we're moving in this direction where there's this much story going on, you can't. I refuse to buy another Pokemon game that doesn't have voice acting.
Oh, I've actually got a note on that because there are certain scenes in this where, like, I'm adamant that Pokemon needs to move towards voice acting. There are parts of the last couple of generations where voice acting, I think, would make scenes so much more impactful. I think this is actually one of them because the humor from Mochi Mochi and that chicken dance, it was already a great scene. The actual voice acting would have elevated it. What were you pulling?
I hated it so much. I'll tell you why I hated it. Okay, because the idea of this Pokemon being able to produce this food that it just shoots at you.
Yes.
You swallow it, you have this really glorious experience, and then boom, you're under its control. There's no fighting it.
Yeah.
There's no, I've got strong enough willpower to take it off. No, you are instantly under its control. That's terrifying. It should have been portrayed as such.
It's
terrifying. I think somewhere along the line they went, oh, we've got what could be a really scary storyline. Let's just make them do the chicken dance so that it's said that it's not scary. And it just didn't work for me. I don't feel like a Pokemon that just makes everyone do the chicken dance is the same Pokemon that's going to send its 3 mates to go kill a dude for the sake of masks. Do you know what? It contradicts itself.
And I think this is part of Pokemon's problem, though. And I don't think it is just this. I think it is from as early as Generation 1 because of the nature of the Pokemon, the Pokedex entries, and some of the storylines and characters, they have to straddle this really weird line of we can apply things that are scary and where if they were in the real world, it would be downright terrifying and worrying and world-ending. But it's got to be for children, and they have to straddle this line, which it's on Game Freak. Like they're the ones that have put themselves in this corner, but I completely understand, and I think that is probably them going, like you say, oh, this is a really scary element. But it's a children's game, and here's a bit.
See, I still stand with Don Bluth on this one. It's like, scare your kids. As long as there's a happy ending, no one cares.
Yeah. No, I can get behind that. Yeah, they could have leaned a bit more into the horror element of this, because that's ultimately what it was. This is like...
It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes! It's absolutely terrifying, this is. The fact that, at first, I thought... it's just producing something, and then it's up to the people that, whether or not they eat it. Like when grandma brings over some, mochi, and it's like, oh, here, I have some of this. And he's like, oh, if you insist, dear. And I thought maybe it's an ingredient people mix in, but then it's revealed later on in that cutscene of, oh no, it produces them and then fires them at people. This thing could quite easily, on its own, take over the entire population of the planet. Quite easily. Because once it's just got 2 or 3 people, it's like, okay, take these out to your friends and family. Someone's going to eat it, and I've got them. And
you just start selling it, and then you just have the whole news talking about, oh, wow, this really amazing new mochi from this company. Yeah. You should buy it.
It's actually terrifying.
But no, we ended up with Chicken Dance.
We ended up with Chicken Dance. So back to your movie idea then. And I do agree to some degree on, one of the highlights of Pokemon animation and anime is it does give you that option to bring in voice acting and do things differently because it's a different medium. But let's say it had been a movie and we didn't get this epilogue, would you have felt like Scarlet and Violet was incomplete?
I still do. I don't think this did anything for me. None of my characters are more fleshed out than they were coming into this. I don't think the meeting of our main trio and Kieran really had any impact. Outside of Arvin swinging a little bit, which granted was hilarious.
He's my best friend!
Fair play, I really enjoyed that. Everything else fell a little bit flat. It just felt like, oh, let's just have an excuse to tell Nomona she's crazy again.
I think I think this had a labeling problem. I think calling it an epilogue was the wrong thing to do because it doesn't feel like an epilogue. It feels like a quest. It feels like this should have been... This almost feels like you've played and completed both pieces of DLC? Well, there's this neat little quest that you get. This, it almost feels like this should have been at the end of the Indigo Disc, and the epilogue should have been the going down, finding Terapagos, and then the, giving the diary back to the professor, and it almost comes back full circle. I feel like feel like there's a mislabeling problem, and they've messed up the order slightly, because this should have been almost you've done Kieran's complete storyline, and now you find out, almost the beginning of where Ogerpon's journey began. You wrap up that. Oh, the epilogue is, oh, we got you. You want to go back down into Area Zero and figure this whole thing out? We can do that.
But the thing is, you say you find out where Ogerpon's journey began. No, you don't. The only reason we know that is because they released an animated show, an animated video.
Yeah,
which
you
is
are
great,
right there, actually.
And I think I'd have just had that. I'd have rather had that, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. As somebody who has vehemently said over and over and over again, stop making mythicals just mystery gifts.
Okay.
I kind of could have just had this one as a mystery gift.
Oh, I hard disagree.
Because I think the animation sells me on Pecharunt more than the game did.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, you find out more about the Pokemon in a 5-minute video that was released on the Pokemon YouTube channel that breaks down its history, where it came from, why it does the things that it does, and this actually, I think I'm starting to see I think I'm starting to see the what's the word I'm looking for? Not strategy, but almost like plan of Game Freak and Pokemon of, okay, we need a game to release by this date. Okay, right, we can get a core of a game released by this date, but what about all the lore? What about all the backstory? Oh no, you've not got time to do that. Just hint at it, and we'll retroactively release some kind of video on YouTube that fills that in. And it really annoys me that is the case. And honestly, I wish they would just go, no, let's give Pokemon or Game Freak a little bit more time, and we don't get that YouTube video. Elements of that story are rolled into this. And it tells more of that story of, here's this Pokemon, here's the history behind it, here's your part in that story. You almost, by doing the epilogue and doing the video, you've got two halves of a story, and I'd wish that they just merged it into one and included that in the game.
See, part of me really wanted this to be a time travel story. So okay. I think it would have been more fun. We've already introduced the idea that Terrapagos can take us through time. And we already have Terrapagos. Okay, you have to in order to get to this point. So what if, instead of just downloading the mystery GIF and walking up to that same vendor, you have Terrapagos in your party, and you walk up to the vendor. You have a look at that same, I think it is actually Pecharunt, isn't it? That's what we find out.
I think it is because it disappears, yeah.
So, instead of it waking up in current times, it's still asleep, and Terrapagos takes you back, and then you're not even in Kitakami anymore, and then you've got to go on that journey with it.
Okay.
You've got to go on the journey to, you find out that, this thing's looking for something. We're going to help it because we're nice people, and we don't know what this thing is.
Yeah.
And then on that journey, we run into Monkey Dory, Pheasantipity,
Retainers. Okay, yeah.
And on that journey, we fight them because we think, oh, it's Monkey Dory, Pheasantipity, and Okidogi. They're bad guys. We'll fight them. Oh, Pecharunt takes them over. Now they're not bad guys anymore.
Oh,
and then we realize towards the end that, we helped Ogerpon get robbed in the first place.
And you know what that's called, folks? That's a paradox. Like, it just... Yeah.
I think there's a lot more fun they could have had with this that sold me on Pecharunt better than this did. Because at the moment, Pecharunt is just a scared little weakling that overtakes people to do the chicken dance. And it's like, okay, cool.
Okay.
And he killed a guy, did he? Or he forced three other Pokemon to kill a guy. All right. Yeah, all right.
Again, it's like...
And again, if it's got the power to overtake people's minds,
why would you need to...
Why didn't he just overtake Ogerpon?
Yeah.
Give them masks.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. Like, I can understand all your points, and I think that your points are absolutely valid. But I still enjoyed this. Okay. And I still enjoyed the fact that it wasn't just a download. By the way, which is like, that's the one thing that does actually annoy me about this. It was like, okay, I'm ready to play this. And I'm just kind of like, how do I get it? And I went
sat there waiting for my phone call.
Yes. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So I was like, okay, I'm inside the Indigo Discs, like actual, not the terrarium, the actual building. I can't remember what it's called. I was like, okay, maybe I just need to leave here and go back to Polte. That didn't trigger it. I was like, what am I missing? So I actually had to look it up. So actually accessing the story isn't as clear as it could have been. I think it was... I enjoyed the fact that we got more Kieran. I enjoyed the fact that we got more time between all the characters. I did enjoy that. I enjoyed... it's like when you have two groups of friends and you bring them together, how are they going to gel? How are they going to get on? I enjoyed that. But I admit that Pennyarvin and Nimona just don't develop in this. Carmine doesn't develop in this. We don't get
Carmine's barely in it.
Carmine is literally in it at the very end for 2 or 3 lines of dialogue. Like, where are the conversations between Carmine and Kieran that are like, what happened? Are you okay? How you feeling? Thanks, sis. Sorry for everything that I did. And I saw rumors leading up to this that, this Pokemon Pecharunt was going to be responsible for Kieran's behavior and attitude. Now, I am glad they didn't go that way, because it robs Kieran of his agency and him being himself if he's under the influence of someone else. I always hate that kind of storyline where, oh yeah, he wasn't a bad guy all along. He was just being like, no, that's just lazy writing, in my opinion. Like, if you're gonna have someone be a bad guy, make them be a bad guy and just give them a compelling reason why, in their mind, they're a good guy in their head. Like Kieran, he just wants to become stronger.
That's think not it is said that See, now this is the confusing bit, because I swear I read somewhere that like the mochi amplifies the Pokemon's greed, or amplifies the greed of the people who eat it.
Yeah, but that's not shown.
But that's not what we saw.
The game. No, the game is literally, it gets taken over. In some degree, it gets taken over. And the only time that we see that isn't completely 100% accurate is Nemona, because Nemona still retains some of that personality to battle. She's the only one that kind of, okay, you can kind of see that. I mean,
I think
one thing
Arvin does as well. He says something, buddy.
Yes. So it shows that maybe they're still in there, which actually makes it even more terrifying if, like, in their head, like, their body is being controlled by this unseen force, but they're trapped inside, like, screaming because they're under something's control. It's actually terrifying. I did like...
Well, it kind of breaks down a little bit as well, because in the video, we see that basically Pecharunt has the Momotaro start to the story, where it's a peach that was found, and this Pokemon popped out and was adopted by these 2 old people. They then eat the mochi and come under his control, and yet they're the one asking him for favors.
Yeah. So
that's what I mean. It's supposed to amplify the greed, and he just wanted to please them.
Again, this feels
but that's
like...
not what happens in the game.
No. This feels like what I said earlier of, just hint at the lore and then we'll retroactively fill it in. But Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are such big entities at this point that the teams that need to talk to one another don't talk to one another. Or maybe something gets lost in translation. Or maybe they've got the footnotes at the start of the process when they're creating this video. And by the time they crafted it, it's like, oh, no, what we've put in the game is different. And they just, we'll just release it anyway. Most people won't even care or know. And this is, part of my annoyance is like, just Pokemon Company, Game Freak, it's just so big of an entity that things start to fall away from them. It's a real shame, because I feel like the epilogue just sums up what Scarlet and Violet has been all this time of squandered potential. Of, you finally do a mythical event, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but I must admit it just felt like a regular quest. It didn't feel like an epilogue. It didn't feel like you are obtaining some amazing mythical Pokemon. It just felt like, you say, a couple of battles and a little bit of running around, unless you decide to fly. Couple of snappy and fun lines of dialogue. I must admit, I do like the cutscene where it appears and it fires the mochi and it goes in Arvin's and Penny's mouths. And
it was the best eating animation we've ever seen in Scarlet and Violet.
It was absolutely fantastic. And,
don't know how they got the sandwiches so wrong.
No, right. Your character avoids it because, of course, your character avoids it. Kieran just get bopped on the head. And I do like, so, you know what? And I do like the fact that a lot of the characters felt still like they were. So, for example, when they're trying to figure this out, each of the core characters, the way they kind of approach it is different. So Penny comes from a scientific perspective. Curses aren't real. I believe in science, which is amazing in a world filled with magical creatures. But sure, you've got Nemona, who thinks, well, whatever's causing it, if we can battle it, we can beat it, and therefore we can solve it. And Arvin's just like, I don't really have a solution. I'm just here to help my best friend. And Kieran's
poor orphan Arvin.
Poor orphan Arvin.
We're all he's got left.
Yeah, he hasn't got anything left. He's
got us and his dog.
Yeah, and you know what else I would have liked? You know what? I think they should have played this differently. I think like the way they potentially should have played this is you play it in a way where the Pokemon you send out are taken over. Because it felt weird to me that, I'm battling a trainer who has been taken over, but their Pokemon haven't been taken over. So surely those Pokemon would kind of go, something's up here. And you have it so that the Mochi is taking over the Pokemon as well. I think it needs that element. And I honestly feel like the way you then solve that at the end is you send out Ogerpon, I fire the Mochi. Oh, it's wearing a mask. I can't get it into its mouth. Like something as simple as that, and it would have worked. And it fits in with the theme of if you want something silly in Pokemon so it doesn't feel so realistic, but it still makes sense from a lore perspective, that's how you do it.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot.
That's the way that you solve this. And I'm a little bit annoyed because one thing I did have spoiled for me was, look what happens if you send Ogerpon out against this final fight. I did that, and I was just so disappointed. It literally roars. It has a little bit of text on screen, and that's it. Like, that's the only additional.
Oh, okay.
I sent out Pheasantipity. I was just curious. Will that get anything? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And sorry, Ogerpon I think gets a stat boost as well, but it didn't make a difference in the theme of the battle. Again, like it just feels like squandered potential. And I enjoyed this for what it was, but it doesn't feel like an epilogue. It just feels like a side quest, which I wouldn't mind because I want Pokemon games to have more side quests for content to do, but don't advertise a side quest as an epilogue. Because this wasn't an epilogue. This was a mythical quest to get a mythical Pokemon, which I'm all for, and I'm glad they're in there. But it's not an epilogue. An epilogue is something that wraps up the story. Like you've seen 99% of the story. This is almost the happy ending, the happy ever after, and I don't think that was this.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like what they're aiming for. I don't think they executed it very well. For me. And I'm not just a hater. I liked Blueberry Academy. Yeah.
So the only thing, a couple of things that I just want to touch on is its ability. If this thing gets into competitive, this ability is absolutely cracked. Like Poison Puppeteer. So I think, and I've not looked this up just from the gameplay, when it poisons something, it also confuses it. Like that is absolutely busted. And again, that kind of, I like that ability kind of ties into the lore of, confusing people. And again, actually, that's another thing. Like we spoke earlier about, it kind of brings out, I can't remember what you said now, like brings out the worst, not the worst in people, but it amplifies feelings and emotions to kind of coerce people into doing what it does. That isn't what happens here. This just confuses, which is different. So why didn't they go with something like, the Pokemon's poison, but then also enamored or, in love with, but something different that isn't in love with of its, it's not actually going to attack Pecharunt because it kind of sees it as, I'm under its control. And every now and again, it kind of can snap out of it and maybe land an attack or something that might have been a little bit too broken.
Yeah, I think if it had been something along the lines of, if you try to attack Pecharunt, you attack one of the other Pokemon on the field.
Yeah.
Like there's a chance, which effectively is confusion, but confusion only hits yourself. I think it would have worked really well if it could also hit allies and basically you have a 50-50 chance of not hitting Pecharunt. Would have been really fun. It's fine. It's an alright ability. It probably won't make it into competitive simply because it's a mythical and mythicals don't do VGC.
Oh, do they not? Okay.
No, not usually, because you just going back because they were mystery gifts. You couldn't guarantee that everyone could get hold of them.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So by saying, "Oh yeah, mythicals are allowed," you're basically just asking people to hack.
Yeah. And this one's behind a paywall as well.
Well, a lot of Pokemon is, so.
Well, a lot of them are. Okay, so the Mochi chicken dance. Okay, you didn't like that. Did you like the music though? Because that thing has been living rent free in my head. I love that music. No, did you not? Oh, okay.
I didn't like the Mochi chicken dance music because again, it was one of those that was just like this is too silly for this situation.
Okay,
and it really drew me out of the game. What I did like was Pecharunt's fight music. That was so good.
I need to go back and listen to that because I can't remember it now. Might have to go back and listen to that after we recorded this podcast. What did you think of that as an actual battle as well? Because it was
nothing. I literally I hit it 4 times. I didn't think any of the battles in this were good. Considering that we fought Nemona again, who slaps Kieran in this.
Yeah, so we know the rankings now.
I didn't even have to think. I literally just clicked A over and over again. And I don't know if that's because we're back to singles, but this just didn't feel like a follow-up to the Blueberry Academy quests, where I've literally just had to become a very strong competitive level player.
Agreed.
Quote unquote.
Yes.
Yeah, this was just like, just breeze through it. And I wasn't even over leveled because I think Nemona's Pokemon are like level 86.
Yeah, they're quite high. You know what I would have actually loved for this? Just an aside, and I'm sure they can figure out a way to work into the story of Nemona and Kieran both being like, well, you couldn't beat him. You couldn't beat him. But what if we teamed up in a double battle? Could we beat him? Like, that is something I would have liked to have seen, just to fully cement your character as like the ace.
Okay, here's why I wouldn't like that.
Okay.
It means that Kieran is still chasing you. And Kieran's done with that now.
True. You're absolutely right there, because Kieran kind of doesn't even really want to battle Nemona. He's kind of like coerced into, okay, this stranger's come and knocking and wants to battle, and Arvin and Penny kind of like, no, this is her thing, just humor here. She's like, oh, okay, right.
And I kind of like it that he loses to Nemona and he gets a little bit upset and he's like, wow, she's strong. What's that all about? It's like, oh, she's a champion too. It's like, oh, it's just a Paldea thing. We're just not on your level.
Yes, apparently not. Also, I did like the fact that like there's a couple of call-outs in this where they just reference your main character's like story, and the fact that like when you recap the story of what's happened and they're like, oh wow, you really have been busy. And then when you catch Pecharunt later on and then they talk about, and I think
he just caught it like he does.
Like he does, yeah, exactly. I love the fact that they just lean into that of like your character is basically like some messiah, some like chosen one in the Pokemon universe, or at least in Paldea, of can accomplish absolutely anything and everything and is immune to, evil, personality sapping Pokemon and everything. It's just, there's some, when Pokemon, when the humor hits, it hits well. And again, if it just had voice acting, it would just hit that little, it would just elevate it, wouldn't it?
I think, again, sorry, I liked what they did with these characters. I wish there was more of it. And I wish this wasn't like, by the way, we're done now. Because I don't feel like a lot of these characters are wrapped up. Although we did get to see Penny talk to her dad, which was lovely.
I've missed that. What?
She's on the phone to her dad when you arrive at the gates. And it's very, very much hinted that we now know who her dad is.
Who is it?
It's Peony.
Who?
Peony is Rose's brother, the guy from the Crown Tundra.
What?
Because they're on an adventure.
Oh.
Because she says, come on, Dad, nobody says that. Nobody says adventure.
Hold on, so that means What's-Her-Face is her sister. What was her name?
Peonia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we took
Peony, Peonia, and Penny.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because she's then the only one who's not named after a flower in that family.
Hmm.
And for those of you out there, because I know you exist, who can't understand how a dark-skinned man can have a light-skinned daughter, it's called mixed race, guys. It happens.
It's genetic. It's just genetic.
I have family who are half Jamaican, half Irish, and most of them are just white. Like they just look white. I'm sorry. That's how it works. All right, get over it.
Definitely. Also, I've just looked up this theory that Penny's father is Peony. There's a post on Reddit a year ago, so this isn't something new. I think this just like further cements that.
So I heard about this theory when like a couple of days after the game came out. I was talking to Toby, Birdkeeper Toby, about theories of the game. And I told him I was going to do my Galar video, all the references to Galar. He was like, "Oh, you're talking about Penny?" I was like, "Yeah, because Penny's from Galar." He was like, "Do you know who Penny's dad is?" I was like, "Who?" He was like, "Peony." And at the time, I was like, I don't think you know that. I don't think there's enough evidence to show that. Shows me what I know. And I think Hybrid Hero came up with that one.
Okay.
I want to say off the top of my head, but yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. I love that. Okay, I've got this save. I'm going to be reading this afterwards because I want to know a little bit more about it. Yeah, anything else you want to discuss about the epilogue, or just Scarlet and Violet as a whole, because it feels like this is Scarlet and Violet is done and dusted. And you know what? I feel like the pieces of DLC that we got are better than Sword and Shields in a way that kind of it feels like it's complete, where Sword and Shield always felt like it was missing something to just wrap everything up.
Well, you don't think the All-Star Tournament wrapped it up?
No, I don't fully.
Okay.
But am I missing something there? Because wasn't that just loads of double battles? If I missed something at the end of that, I need to revisit that game.
No. But I felt like that was a nice closing to what Galar was, what Sword and Shield was, which was a more league focused. It was like, okay, we're now going to do the All-Star League. I don't think there was a better way to do that.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah. But at the same time, like, we didn't find out anything more about... Do we find what happens to Rose? I know Peony mentions it a little bit about... But I don't think they go into great detail what happens to all these different characters. I need to go back. I think we're going to do that this year, aren't we? We're going to go back and
play. He gets arrested, and then that's kind of it.
That's it, yeah.
But you know that man's going to a white-collar prison, so... He'll
be absolutely fine. He'll love it. 3 meals a day, gets to watch TV, play video games, gets to go to community visits to local city. He'll do fine in prison. And then he'll come out and get a top exec job somewhere. Yeah, so that's it. Scarlet and Violet, it's done. It's dusted. It feels absolutely crazy that this has been our life for so long. And what's going to come next? I guess we'll find out in a month's time what is going to be coming, if anything, this year. I still maintain we're getting something this year.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, just what it is, who knows?
I think the fact that they called this an epilogue, I mean, technically it's a Treasures of Area Zero epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you could call something an epilogue and then continue.
No, I really don't see how they do. I honestly feel like this wraps up the questions and speculation I've seen about, are we getting more DLC? I think this kind of firmly cements that no, we're not getting anything else. Now, Scarlet and Violet is done outside of raids. Raid events, maybe a handful of mystery gifts of, there's a competition going on. Celebrate the competition with this Pokemon, this Herba Mystica free pack. That is, I think, all we're going to get now between now and probably not even when the next game comes out. I think whatever game comes out maybe later on this year, Scarlet and Violet's online community will continue, much like Sword and Shield's still going strong. I think you can still do raids. You can still, well, that's about all you can do really online. Trade and battle, you can still do that, I think, in Sword and Shield. That's about it. Like, there's no new content, and Scarlet and Violet feel like that's where we're going with this now. We'll get a handful of raids of, if you're playing Scarlet, then you can get these versions that aren't available, and vice versa. And I think that's all we're going to get now with this.
It was a ride.
It was definitely a ride, wasn't it? It was definitely mixed with ups and downs. Ooh, I just hope they learn the right lessons from this, folks, and I don't think they will.
Asking a lot of Game Freak, aren't you?
Well, yeah, we are, apparently. Should we move on to Pokemon Concierge? Because it's rare that I watch something and I would consider it a work of art.
Oh, beautiful.
This, honestly, right now, if Pokemon Company came out and said, listen, money's tight, we're stretched, do you want Season 2 of Pokemon Concierge or a Pokemon game? I think I'd take Season 2 of Pokemon Concierge right now, because this thing was absolutely phenomenal. I fell in love with the characters, the Pokemon in terms of just giving them, again, personalities, but also just the look of them. Never before have some Pokemon looked so cuddly and so full of life. I honestly, like, folks, if you haven't watched Pokemon Concierge, it will take an hour, actually less than an hour, out of your day.
And it's just comfy. It's a comfy show.
It really is.
When I was feeling ill, I sat down to watch this, and by the end of that hour, I was in tears.
Yeah,
I was just sat there like I'm just sitting here crying. No, I'm good. Yeah. I'm happy. Everything's great. I just feel comfortable.
It's so nice. It's so nice. Like what I want to do, if it's all right with you, I want to jump like episode to episode, just kind of what are the key points from each of those episodes and what are the things that we did and didn't like. And I appreciate you watched this like 2 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So episode 1 starts with Haru, who basically has had the worst week in her life. Her boyfriend broke up with her. Her best friend quit the job where they were together. She stepped in gum, not once but twice. She broke something. I think there were 7 things that happened, like, just to cement, like, this is the worst week ever. So Haru just goes, you know what? I'm done. I'm dusted. I'm going to work at this hotel. And her job is literally just to make the Pokemon there happy. Like, what a job to have. And you know what? Her manager is the best manager ever, because she turns up on day 1 and the manager doesn't go, no, you're doing this task, you're doing these boring things to learn. No, just goes, no, just go and enjoy the resort for the day. Go and learn what we're all about, and just goes off and enjoys it. She meets with Tyler, Elisa, and then her supervisors, Watanabe. And I love the fact that they did, when they introduced these characters, Tyler is this like kind of surfer bro. How's it going, dude? I just think I'm going to hate this person. Then you meet Elisa, who is like, you know, this mean kind of girl. And, you know, she's like, got an angry face on her. Both of them are just there just to help out and be friends, even though they have that initial... I think it plays on like those kind of tropes in TV shows and movies of, you know who you're getting with these 2 characters, but then just break those tropes of, no, they're both just really nice people who have come to this island for the same reasons of, it's just paradise, and you just get to live a really good life and just make things better.
I got that same kind of energy of, if you've ever been to a festival, you'll know the festival energy, where it's like, you can go up and talk to anyone. You can just have random chats. You can be like, oh, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? And everybody's just there to have a good time, and nobody wants any hassle. And you feel it, and it is just a different kind of energy in the air. And you can sit down with people who you would never, ever associate with in day-to-day life. Yeah. And you go, no, let's be friends for the weekend. Yeah. And it's got that kind of feel where it's just a case of like, yeah, you're right. Surfer Bro would do my head in the real world.
Yeah.
But this isn't the real world. This is the
Yeah.
Pokemon Resort. So everything's
Exactly.
just chill.
Just absolutely fantastic. And they mentioned that the resort isn't your typical resort. You can get trainers. You can get trainers Pokemon that they leave there. You get wild Pokemon coming in, and they just all intermingle. Like, shout out to the 5-year-old that has a Metagross. Like, I was just like, wait, what? This kid's just got a Metagross? Okay, fine. Anyway, the episode ends with Haru falls asleep during a massage, and she suddenly starts to panic that, I think she starts to realize I'm maybe in over my depth here and I need to kind of impress them. So she builds a report on personal work policies, shows them, and Watanabe's just like, well, no. Like, no, we don't do that here. Like, this is just a nice, relaxing place. Don't worry about that. Your job is to just go and, like, make Pokemon happy. So she goes and reflects on the beach. She meets Psyduck, and that is the end of episode 1. And
the thing is, it's such a good message for today, where it's a case of everything is go all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody is constantly thinking about what everybody else is thinking about them. And that's just kind of the world we live in, with social media and things like that. That is the world we live in now. So to have a show that its message is like, calm down. All you've got to do is be happy and make other people happy. That's your one job.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the stakes are so low throughout this entire show.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm great.
Oh yeah. And I like that one of the key themes of this series, these 4 episodes are like if you can't figure out what you're good at, that's fine. Just have fun. Like, just figure out what makes you happy. And I think like a lot of people need to learn that of like, you're not going to be the best at. Chances are you're not the best at anything. Chances are there is somebody out there that is better at you and something. But that's fine. That's okay. Like, as long as you are having fun doing the things that you want to do, then, and it's you know what? It's the same with us with this podcast and YouTube channels of, they haven't got the best subscribers. Best subscribers. They haven't got the best.
We got great subscribers.
We got great subscribers. I won't say they're the best. We got great subscribers. But the fact that, like,
maybe not the most of them.
Maybe not most of them, or you haven't got the most watch time, or you're not making much or if any money from them. But when we come on and record this podcast, I have an absolute blast and I go away with a high. When I pump out a video and I'm like, okay, I'm really proud of what I've done there. Doesn't matter if it doesn't get like 1 billion views. I've still had fun and I've had a good time.
And that's it. And again, it's that world that we live in where every hobby has to be a hustle.
Yes.
Every hobby has to be a side hustle. Everything has to make you money. Everything has to give value. And like, again, as somebody who isn't well and spends a lot of their days like in bed, not able to move, it's something I struggle with, is thinking I have no value to give. I have no worth, because we live in that world where, monetary value is the way that we unfortunately fall into this thing. So the idea that like, oh no, if you can make one person happy, that's all you got to do is make one person happy. Job done.
Yeah.
And how do you do it? By doing whatever you're good at.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's such a beautiful show.
It really is. And that theme is throughout the entire 4 episodes. So episode 2, just to sum this up really quickly, she tracks down this Psyduck who Harry's kind of having this crisis of, okay, my job is, all I've got to do is make Pokemon happy, but I have no idea how to make Pokemon happy. But then she spots the Psyduck again, she builds a connection, and then she helps the Psyduck to develop its psychic powers through a couple of, silly mishaps and everything, which is fun. Some hijinks, it's fantastic, and Psyduck seems genuinely happy. Episode 3 is titled I Hope I Can Evolve Too, which is fantastic because it relates back to Haru's like, oh, okay, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm developing. And it just goes through how am I going to make Pokemon happy? And there's this pathetic little Magikarp that can barely even swim. Just like, how do you make a Magikarp
Which is
even
saying
more
a lot to be a pathetic Magikarp.
Magikarp, like, it's got this ring, and there's some usual hijinks. The ring comes off. We like this floaty. We get to see Magikarp cry, which again, like that, and the fact that the sound it makes just makes it sound even like this is the most pathetic Magikarp that there is, except for it has a star on it. It has this little birthmark, has a star. And later on, after Haru goes through this, trying to retrieve this floaty only for hijinks to happen and Snorlax crushes it and trying to fix it, she fails to do the thing that she wanted to do, which is fix this floaty. And yet what she does brings happiness to other Pokemon, because she decorates this floaty and other Pokemon come along and she's like, oh, you want this too? And it's just that great message of, even though she failed at what she was doing, it still brought enjoyment and fun to other Pokemon. It's just absolutely fantastic. And then episode 4
Hang on, just on that note, there is a really odd reading you can make of this though. Because Magikarp evolves at the end.
Yes.
And Magikarp very often evolves into Gyarados when it's really angry. So it gets so annoyed that Haru didn't bring his ring back after she promised that he evolves. Yes. But then it's fine because he can swim anyway because he's a Gyarados.
Yeah, so he's happy now.
So it works out.
Right. It does actually, because it does have that look of like when it evolves, it just like has that shot of like, you'd have with like Godzilla or any monster movie of she's there and it just like rises up in front of her and you just realize the complete scale of the creature. And honestly, like reading into the way you've read into it, that thing could have hyper beamed her right there and then. Could have gotten away with it. Episode 4. So Pikachu, just so many Pikachu, because of course Pikachu has to be in any series that it's in. And there's one trainer, there's a trainer with one of the Pikachus, and just wants it to be louder because it seems really unhappy, quite timid, and
wants to be more Pikachu.
More Pikachu, just like not just. I want to say grumpy. Grumpy isn't the right word, but it's just like it's so insular that I think it's just maybe it doesn't know how to come out of its shell. And Haru tries what she does to like, try and make it louder. And honestly, I thought this episode was going to end with, oh, we failed, but at least Pikachu had a good time.
Yeah.
Which I would have been happy with. I think I would have been happy with that than what we get of at the very end. Pikachu is then noisy shouting Pikachu as it leaves. And I'm like, oh, both of them work, but
the thing is, I think we do get that ending where it's a case of like, no, Pikachu doesn't need to be that. Pikachu can be whatever it wants to be. If it wants to be shy, if it wants to be quiet. This Pikachu is perfect just the way it is, and we shouldn't try and force it into being something it's not. Which again leans very heavily into this whole thing. Haru is trying to prove that she has this worth, she has this value, she can, it's that Japanese mentality in joining the workforce of, oh no, I've got to add value to my company, I've got to be good at what I do. And it's just like, slow down and just be you, and you is the best that you can be. Like, and we will get the most out of you by you being you. And we learn that from Pikachu at the end. And as you say, it goes off on this boat. And I think I like the idea that it's not big, it's not loud, it's not vocal for the sake of it every time. It's just a case of, this is now the only way I can express quite how much what you've done means. I don't think this Pikachu is going to go on now to be boisterous and running around and being friends with all the other Pikachu every time it shows up. It's going to go back to being quiet and reserved. But in that one moment, it wanted to. It wanted to be loud. And because it had been allowed to be itself for so long, as I have a lot of autistic friends who face this kind of similar thing of like, you think they're shy and reserved. They're not. They're the biggest, loudest people in the world, but they can't show that.
Yeah.
So when you allow them to be themselves, that's when they can become extroverted to the biggest extreme.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we saw. It's like, oh no, I've let you be yourself. I've let you be shy. I've let you be calm. We've had fun and we're good. To show my thanks, I'm going to be as big and loud as possible. I thought it was beautiful. And again, that was the point where I was like, it's so good.
It's so beautiful. It's so nice.
And Haru cries and her tears look great. And this whole show looks amazing.
It looks phenomenal. It looks so good. And like some of the Pokemon, like this art style suits some Pokemon so well. So I'm thinking like the monkeys from Gen 5, Pampor, Pansage, and Pansear. Like they have never looked good in either the art or games, in my opinion. And they just look so basic and boring. And yet this visual style, they look phenomenal. They look absolutely amazing. That kind of like fairy felt kind of look, which some of the Pokemon have. Some Pokemon have the more Play-Doh kind of look to them, which again works really well. Like Mudkip looks phenomenal. Like looks so good. The Gyarados
what
looks
I love
really
is
good.
They don't lean into the idea of like, oh, what would this Pokemon actually look like? This isn't Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
Movie. This isn't them going, oh well, a Dragonite would be scaly. They go, no, Dragonite's a big soft boy. So we're going to make him feel like a big soft boy. And that's what I really like about the designs, is you get more of the feeling of the Pokemon than the realistic look.
Yes.
As you say, Gyarados is imposing. Hoppip is this squishy little boy that you just want to go,
yeah.
and as you say, Dragonite's a big soft boy. Like, it's so wonderful. And the animation in it is special. I think these are some of the best animations we've ever seen for Pokemon. And seeing the breakdown of the Netflix show that they did a little behind the scenes, and you can see the producers and the creators and the artists behind it say like, no, we know that, stop motion can feel a bit stiff. So to bring these Pokemon to life, we really had to give them personality. So they were talking about how when Psyduck moves, he's off balance.
Yeah.
Because it just gives him that little bit of a derpy look to him, which is great. And Psyduck is one of my favorite characters in this.
Oh, he's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Like, there are some great personalities in this, and how they bring so much personality to bundles of fur and clay is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And you can tell that the creators of this, I think had a load of fun, but also were allowed to just let their creativity and passion shine through. And it really does shine through, because you can tell how much love they've put into this. And one of the things that stood out to me is in the behind the scenes interview, and they say, oh yeah, we looked at some of the items and like, how would they be different in the Pokemon world? Like, a watering can wouldn't just be a watering can. It would be something themed around water Pokemon. And they said in the behind the scenes like how many items there were and can you find them all. And I really do want to go back and just have a look to see what items they've gone. Okay, well, it's not just a lamp because it's in the Pokemon world, so it would be based on Pikachu or Magnemite or whatever it might be. It's just the love for this, and I hope that people go out and watch this, and I hope that it gets the viewing figures that allows them to do a second season. Now, if this is just a one and done season, I'm okay with that, because it just stands on its own. But I think we would be missing out if we didn't get a second season that could again focus on, okay, what's the positivity element? What is the nice message that we want to deliver with a second season? And just a show that you can put on, you can switch off, and you can just breathe a sigh of relief and go, oh, this is just nice.
Yeah.
And I'd love another season.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about sort of the spin-off animated shows like Hisuian Winds. No, wrong. Paldean Winds,
Snow,
Hisuian
and Paldean
Snow,
Winds. Yeah.
and Twilight Wings and things like that.
Yes.
And they're all great. And I think this is if not on a level, might be better.
Yes, you know, I
a very different vibe.
Different, yeah.
You know, those are very much more game based and are more about, you know, exploring the world of the games more in depth. Whereas this is just, oh, let's just have fun with the Pokemon world, which is kind of what I've been asking for a long time. Of like, can I just see what people do in the Pokemon world with Pokemon?
Yeah. You know what? Now that I have watched this, I can understand why it was included in. Was it Pokemon Presents? It was in a wrap up of loads of Pokemon things, and at the time, it felt a little. Yeah, why is this in here? It doesn't feel like it stands on its own. But now that I've seen it, I can completely understand why they went, no, we're including this in here because it's quirky, unique. It's got this great message behind it, and the creativity and the passion shine through. I can completely understand why they included it in there, and I'm glad they did. Otherwise, this might have passed us by.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Big question for you. Did you watch it subbed or dubbed?
I watched it dubbed.
Okay. How did you find that?
Fine. I don't know how to answer that, to be quite honest.
No. Right. So I went to go watch it, and I was watching it in English to begin with.
Yeah.
And what I found was the lip flaps were just not matching up at all.
No, they don't. No, you're absolutely right.
And usually when it comes to like anime, there's a special writing technique that they use to make the lip flaps match as best as possible. And it means that they'll change the dialogue and things like that and get the main point of the dialogue across, but not the words. Okay. Whereas the words were more accurate. I think I flipped back and forth a couple of times, and they seem to be saying pretty much the same thing. I think one or two words here or there, but it's one of the closest direct translations we've ever had.
Wow.
But again, there was really not a lot of effort made to match the lip flaps, and I don't know if that's a limitation of the stop motion.
Potentially, yeah.
But what I found was I swapped over to subbed and just found it more appealing. But that being said, this is one of the first Pokemon products I've ever been able to do that with.
Yeah, because Netflix is just like, it's all built in. Choose from a dozen languages.
But even any other Pokemon series, when have you ever been able to watch it in Japanese without going to a sketchy site?
Yeah, exactly. No, you're completely right there. Yeah.
It was really nice to be able to go, oh, I'm going to watch this in the original language and it being available. That needs to happen going forward. Needs to happen going forward. If Pokemon Horizons comes to Netflix, it needs to have the Japanese dub.
Did Journeys have it?
No.
I don't know. Did it not?
No.
Strange. Because it exists, so why would they not?
I think it's a licensing thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to double check now, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh. He's a Googling.
I'm not even Googling. I'm just straight on Netflix.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, you can listen to it in Portuguese, Italian, French, Spanish, or Arabic. Czech, Dutch, German, Hebrew, Portuguese, Spanish, Latin American, but not Japanese. Weird. Why?
Very strange. Very strange. Go and watch it if you haven't already. You will absolutely love it, and let us know what thought of it. Conor, anything else before we wrap up another week of the Goldenrod Podcast?
No, I think that's it for me. Hopefully next week I'll be alive.
He is hoping. That's the show for this week. If you've gone this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? If you before you go, as always, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're watching on YouTube, then please leave a like, as it really helps out the podcast. Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget, or on Twitter at CapFidget.
I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoeing Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoeing on Twitter. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya.